Anyway, moving on. Um, let's now talk about these 145 nations now recognizing Palestinian statehood. So we might not have a whole lot to say here. I want to start with a comedian. His name is Sami Obeid, Obeid, if you want to look him up. I want to credit this content you're about to hear. But he has a stand-up routine, and I came across, it's edited, so it's going to go pretty quickly. But I think that this sort of frames this story and what it must be like to be a person that sees the humanity in Palestine, or lack thereof, and or lack thereof in terms of Israel's response to the Hamas attacks at this point. Initially, sure, but at this point, obviously, it's super OD. So we're going to listen to Sami Obeid, again, Sammyobeid, giving credit to the voice you're about to hear, and then we'll go into a CNN article. Here we go.
That Trump wants to cut disaster relief funding for people who boycott Israel? Because that's important. Donald Trump, 47th president and first on the Epstein list, put out a statement with FEMA, which is not short for female, I had to look it up, saying that any state that does not stop its residents from boycotting Israel will be denied disaster relief funds. So if you're not cool with families getting bombed, your family deserves a hurricane. And I don't know if you know about the United States, we got a lot of disasters. And they're all of a different vibe, you know? On the West, natural disasters are hot and shaky. On the East, they're wet and twisty, which sounds like a prank you'd play on your friend. I'm gonna give you a wet and twisty, you know? There was a tornado in the Midwest a few weeks ago. Do you see the footage of the aftermath? That place looked like it got hit by Israel. Do you see the fires in LA earlier this year? That place looks like it met Israel. All natural disasters do the exact same damage as Israel, but for way cheaper. I'm just saying, buy domestic. You know, like, we send all this money to Israel for them to bomb other countries, but why not just invite those other countries to Oklahoma? The only difference between Israel and a tornado is that Congress doesn't keep voting for the tornado. And at some point, the tornado actually stops destroying homes. Now, if you accuse this joke of being anti-Semitic, it's actually the opposite, because I'm saying no one controls the weather. This FEMA statement said that boycotting Israel is anti-Semitic and a form of discrimination, but then it also said any state that participates in DEI will also be punished. It's like, bro, pick a personality. The craziest part is you can boycott American companies and not get punished. You can boycott McDonald's and the government's still gonna be like, I'm loving it. But if you boycott Sabra hummus, you're living in a tent, just like you got hit from Israel. Because, you know, America third. Because China's like second. And we all know this is happening because Trump has to kiss up to Israel because Israel has the Epstein files. Israel has footage of Trump and Epstein with underage girls, aka FEMA's. Had to connect it somehow. They have straight up footage of him caught in 4K, probably 1080p with the technology they had back then. But that's why Trump is so obsessed with the boycott, because that boy caught. Tax money is going to wars and genocides overseas that we don't want. And the government's trying to suppress us from boycotting. It's like, bro, you begging for a revolution? You want it, don't you? Just say it. We'll do it. I'll be your Sam Adams. I'll spill the tea. We got to get a straight up Gen Z revolution, dumping matcha into the lake. I don't think the government's aware. A revolution will f this place up. We'll leave this place looking like it got hit by Israel. And we're going to need some relief for that.
Again, that's at Sami Obeid. I think that's how I say it, Obeid, if you want to check out more of his content. And I want to share something from CNN. A growing number of countries are pledging to recognize a Palestinian state, with more than 145 nations now joining the call for international recognition. Most of the nations that recognize a state of Palestine did so in 1988, following the Palestine National Council's declaration of the state. Many other non-Western states followed suit in the 1990s, 2000s, and 2010s. So this is just what we've gotten. This is not the article. I'll get back to the article in a second. New countries to recognize Palestinian statehood include France, Australia, Canada, Malta, Portugal, and the United Kingdom. Those are some big, influential, powerful countries that are set to recognize Palestine. And they're going to do so in September, next month. All right, back to the article. Those recent announcements leave the United States increasingly isolated from some of its closest allies on the issue of Israel and how it has conducted its military campaign and aid restrictions. Israel's foreign ministry has rejected the European nations' recent calls for recognition, calling them a reward to Hamas that undermine efforts to reach a ceasefire. U.S. President Donald Trump has also blasted the calls for recognition. It comes amid growing condemnation of the starvation crisis in Gaza caused by Israel's blockade of humanitarian aid, which has been widely condemned by United Nations agencies and humanitarian groups. Q, you want to go first here?
Well, I don't know what it means, so I don't know how to feel.
Okay.
Like I've said it before. Like I'm kind of over the symbolism. Like, is this just is this like a feel good story? Like, okay, now we all recognize something that's obvious and shouldn't have to. We need humans to tell humans they're humans, that they deserve to be recognized as humans, that they deserve to not have their babies shot and starved and unalived and blown up. We need people to hold hands and symbolically agree to that, so that then what happens? Will those people agreeing to that make the people who are funding and causing this genocide stop? If not, then I don't feel anything by it. Like I'm the symbolic holding hands in kumbaya that leads to no change doesn't move me. I'm not saying that that's going to be the result, but I don't know. So, I don't. If all those nations recognize this, does it change anything? If it does, then I'll run down the street barefoot right now and do a backflip and celebrate and fall on my knees and cry and be excited. If it's just another symbolic thing that doesn't mean anything or change anything and nobody's going to get involved with stopping what's happening, then how are we supposed to feel? So maybe you can educate me.
Well, so for folks that want to get into the weeds, again, that article is from CNN and you can go a lot further. I am not the best person to articulate fully what it means, but I recognize that it's certainly a starting point. When I know that the bar is like you have to dig a hole to find the bar, right? But when the alternative is doing nothing, recognizing Palestinian statehood is something, right? Each one of these countries by themselves, they might not have the capacity to stand up to, certainly not the United States, militarily speaking, or economically speaking. And I think Israel probably has like the third or fourth or fifth, something like that, strongest military in the earth. So Israel that's a pretty powerful military setup that they have in Israel too. So how this looks and feels to me is more people lining up saying, you know what, Palestine, we're going to treat Palestine like it's a different state as opposed to some land owned by Israel. We're going to treat the citizens as sovereign citizens, independent of the nation state of Israel. And how they go about implementing the treatment of those people remains to be seen, to your point. But again, when the alternative, and for the past couple of years, the alternative has been nothing, it feels like something. And technically, there are still people alive in Palestine. And so it might be too little and it might be too late, to your point, but it's not nothing. And people doing something, maybe it takes a long time to get this across the finish line. Maybe, there's a lot of things that I don't know. I'm not going to profess to know it, but bravo to all these countries doing something. And hopefully it helps them to acknowledge formally the suffering taking place in Palestine so that they can do something formally about it.